Are you a person with a disability, or do you love somebody with a disability? Or do you realize that you very well may have a disability yourself someday? If so, please listen to what I'm going to say. Because a new Republican lawsuit is not only threatening disability protections, but also maybe the Americans with Disabilities Act itself, and we need your help. Because we can stop it, but only if enough of us get loud. The lawsuit in question is called Texas v. Becerra, and it concerns Section 504 of something called the Rehabilitation Act. That act came out in 1973, and the statute says basically that any entity that receives federal dollars cannot discriminate on the basis of disability. Sounds simple, right? But it's also a little vague, so it wasn't really being enforced. So activists worked really hard, and in 1977, the government published a set of regulations that gave it some teeth. This resulted in the implementation of Section 504, which, as this says, radically transformed society and education for disabled Americans. It also laid the foundation for subsequent advancements in disability rights legislation, such as the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. 50 years passed, COVID hit, and Americans with disabilities and the people who love them started to realize that there were still a lot of things missing and that this old set of regulations needed to be updated. And so the Biden administration set out to do just that. After years of taking public comments, consulting with people who have disabilities, consulting with experts, they came up with a new and updated rule. That final rule was issued in May of 2024. This new rule is hundreds of pages long. It's got 2,300 pages of evidence and comments attached to it. It is considered a game changer in the disability rights space. These regulations went into effect 60 days after the rule was published, so in July of 2024. And barely 2 months later, the Republican attorneys general in these 17 states sued. Now, you'll likely ask, why would they do that? And that's a great question. So these rules are made up of two parts. They're made up of a preamble and then the rule itself. So in the preamble to these rules, there is a reference to the fact that gender dysphoria may be a disability. That's it. It's in the preamble, not in the rule. Even though it is not technically in the rule, it is that statement that is at the center of this case. And if that were it, if Texas and these other states were just saying, well, we're suing to get that part stripped out of the preamble, then okay, maybe. But that's not what they're doing. No, their lawsuit basically says that the entire law should never have been enacted in the first place. They ask for the law to be declared unconstitutional, for it more or less to be completely vacated. And this part of the lawsuit is frightening because if the judge were actually to declare Section 504 unconstitutional, it could mean that other anti-discrimination statutes, ones based on race or sex or ethnicity, are also unconstitutional and can be overturned. And because there are provisions in this regulation, Rule 504, that link in with the Americans with Disabilities Act, there are people who fear that if one is overturned, the other will certainly go as well. Catastrophic. Fortunately, there is something we can do to fight back. An organization called the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund has put together a whole toolkit with ways you can help. It's got a great explainer about what Texas v. Becerra is, more about Section 504. It also lists some of the ways that Section 504 and its rules help us. You should read them. Then it tells you how to contact your state attorney general if you live in one of the 17 states that is suing, including specific contact information for each one, and they give you a sample letter or email. What we're asking them all to do is drop out of the lawsuit. You guys, this rule being overturned is going to affect so many people, and someday I guarantee you it will affect you. So take the time to send the letter, and if you don't live in one of those states, send the toolkit on to people you know who do. Let's protect our disability rights from these Republican attacks, and let's do it like our lives depend upon it, because someday, y'all, they almost definitely will.